This episode of the Crackcast is brought to you by our friends at BigDoor24.pl. It's a new free service dedicated to helping expats to rent or buy a property and earn cash back on successful mortgage applications. BigDoor24.pl also has lots of tips and advice on renting and buying in Poland, so make sure you check them out and use the special promo code CRACKCAST to get a great cash back offer. And now, on with the show.
I'd like to welcome a very special guest onto the show this week. It's Bart Siepracki from Enterprise Ireland. How are you, Bart?
I'm very well. How are you, Dave?
Not too bad, not too bad. Thank you very much for appearing on the Crackcast. It's quite an honour to have a man such as yourself on here to explain the great work you guys do. How did you get involved with Enterprise Ireland, Bart?
So I joined the agency 12 years ago. I worked for a similar Finnish agency called Finpro. I was supporting Finnish ICT companies on the Polish market, and at that time, Enterprise Ireland, the Warsaw office of Enterprise Ireland, was looking for somebody like me with experience in IT sector, and I applied for the job. I got it, and have been with the organization for 12 years now. 2 years ago, I was promoted to be the manager of the Warsaw office that covers that is responsible for the Polish market and the Baltics.
Oh, very good. So your background is IT, Bart, yes?
Yeah, I was a journalist. I was a radio journalist for some time. I was a marketing kind of sales person in a kind of telecommunication equipment company. So I have some background, let's say, in IT. I'm not an engineer myself, so I can pretend to understand how these systems work, but that's about it. Yeah.
Many strings to your bow, Bart. Many strings to your bow. Okay, so you guys cover all of Poland and all of the Baltic states from your office in Warsaw, which is 6 or 7 people you were telling me before we started?
Yeah, so we have, at the moment, we have 5 kind of permanent staff and 1 graduate who joined us within Enterprise Ireland graduate program last year in September. So six people at the moment. And we are kind of split across different sectors. So my colleague Joanna, she works with life science companies and clean tech. Eva covers IT and kind of BPO and service companies. And Adam works with agri-tech and engineering companies. And then Agnieszka and Adriana, who's the graduate, they are doing all sorts of different things and support us in kind of market research and office administration.
Right. At this point, I think we need to pull back because I'm quite conscious a lot of our listeners might not know exactly what Enterprise Ireland does, what it was set up for, what its mission is, and obviously how you actually engage with different businesses, who you guys represent, what kind of client lists you have. Could you give our more ignorant listeners a bit of an overview, Bart, of what exactly the organisation is?
So we are Irish government agency that's responsible for the development and growth of Irish enterprises in world markets. That's our pitch, and we work with these companies to help them start, grow, innovate, and win export sales in global markets. And we have 33 offices in the world. Let's see, one in terms of this region. So we have one in Warsaw, we have one in Prague. There are offices in Germany, in Spain, London, of course, Stockholm. We'll be opening this year one in Copenhagen. So we are quite active in Europe, but also in Asia, the US, and South America as well. And basically, we work with around 5,000 Irish companies who are registered Irish entities. And in order for them to avail of our services, they have to be our clients. So they have to go through registration process where we check their status, where we check their activity, what they do, there are some activities that there are some companies that we wouldn't work with, for example, in the gambling, from the gambling sector. And basically, our mission is to grow sustainable jobs in Ireland and help these companies win export sales. Yeah,
okay, so we're generally talking about kind of startups, new firms, companies that want to expand out of Ireland into the global market, rather than say, we're not trying to help, McDonald's open another branch in Swords or something. This is a, targeted type of help, Bart. Would that be fair to say?
That's right. And we are quite active as an investor also in terms of these startups and young companies. And just to give you an example of a program that we are running, it's our kind of flagship initiative. It's called Competitive Startup Fund, and there are somewhere between 8 to 10 calls a year for competitive startup funds. And within that program, Irish companies can apply for 50 grand of funding for, I think, 10% of equity. And within that investment, we also provide a really nice support package in terms of mentor support and access to our overseas network of 33 offices. And I mean, it's not a big amount of money, 50,000, but it helps these companies to improve and develop their minimum viable products to the stage where after, let's say, 6 or 8 months, we as Enterprise Ireland co-invest with VCs or angels somewhere between, I don't know, 200 or somewhere between 200 to 500,000 euro just to get the company going properly. So that
excellent. So there's a venture capitalism element to it as well. Oh, that's fantastic. So it sounds like a no-brainer for these companies. I'd say the networking potential that you can gain is amazing as well. I was wondering maybe, Bart, if you could tell our listeners possibly about a kind of a Polish-Irish collaboration, maybe as an example, something that's been happening between the two countries. That's a good news story.
So one of the recent good news stories is a company called Eviview. It's kind of technical. It's a little bit technical because they what they do is they provide a software system for pharma companies, production for pharmaceutical companies. For shift handover, and basically this software helps these companies optimize all activities around shift handover, so minimize time, get the right employees for the right handover, and basically it saves them time and money. And there are two co-founders. One is Polish, and he's a little bit on the kind of IT side, and the Irish co-founder is more. He's got the pharmaceutical industry background, and they collaborated together. They developed the system. They got Enterprise Ireland funding within this competitive startup fund, and they are now talking to several global pharmaceutical companies discussing kind of implementation of the system, and these companies are quite interested in that system, and there were some sales closed already, and we are helping Karol also to reach out to pharmaceutical companies operating on the Polish market as well, and quite likely we'll have some good news later on this year. And another great story from the kind of engineering markets is Combilift. It's an Irish company.
Yeah, I've heard of them. They make heavy machinery in Ireland, right?
That's right. So they manufacture forklifts and kind of complex machines for handling really heavy construction elements. They are called straddlers.
Yes, great name, Straddlers.
Yeah, and this machine can carry up to 50-ton piece of concrete that could be used to build a bridge. And last year they opened really big factory in Monaghan, and they've been in Poland for 20 years now, or 22 years. They have 5 distribution partners here, and they are doing very well. They are very innovative. They can move. They are very flexible in terms of moving. They have really smart kind of solutions around handling very long materials and elements. And by using these forklifts, you can save on the space, like in a warehouse. Yeah.
And it's one of those areas that you don't necessarily associate the Irish economy with, that type of production. So it's a really exciting firm, and it'd be amazing to see it expand into the Polish market too. Okay, so I'd like to move on now, Bart, and talk about the Irish-Polish Innovation Forum, which, let's be real about it, was the purpose for you getting in touch with us to promote this fabulous event that's taking place in Krakow out in the business park. I believe the Minister for State, Kevin Moran, is going to be attending. Can you tell us all about what's going on Wednesday?
So what happens around St. Patrick's Day? There's a big initial diplomatic offensive sort of from Ireland. Almost all of the ministers travel to different markets, and this year we'll have Minister Kevin Moran, who's responsible for Office of Public Works. He's coming down to Krakow and Warsaw, and in Krakow he will join us for the fourth Irish-Polish Innovation Forum. And basically for us, it's a great initiative to kind of showcase Irish tech innovation ecosystem in Krakow, a city that's really thriving in terms of technology, and I see Krakow as the leader, let's say, like a local city leader in terms of building up these ecosystems.
All right, careful now. You'll get in trouble up in Warsaw for saying such a thing.
No, I mean, they can see that. I mean, in Warsaw, it is happening as well, but I would say that Krakow has all the right ingredients and then the right amount to really become not only not only Polish leader, but also regional leader in terms of building this tech innovation ecosystem. And basically, we'd like to bring Irish and Polish business community to this event, and talk about what we do as Enterprise Ireland, and share our story with local startups, entrepreneurs. Maybe they will want to consider Ireland as a possible location for their global business in the future, and we'd like to build some bridges between Ireland and Krakow. I mean, there are some Irish companies with offices in Krakow already. So one of them opened last year. The company is called Smart Tech 24/7. They are a cybersecurity services company, and they have a small office in Krakow Park of Technology. There's another one called Corville. So Corville, they again IT network kind of telecommunication networks, a company with around 30 offices, and there are a couple of Irish nationals who are well known in the kind of business community, like Owen McCoy, who's the head of Shared Service Center of IG.
I know Owen well. Is Owen going to be at the event? Is he?
Yeah, he's coming. Yeah, he's coming.
A great guy. Big shout out to Mr. McCoy. He's a legend in the old expat community, There you
go.
And Pavel Kulon, who I accidentally called you Pavel because I was staring at his name on the on the event timetable. So Pavel has been on the show as well. He's the head of the OMG Crack startup community. I think they're actually based out in that business park, actually. So I'm sure he'll give a great talk. So what are you most excited about, in the future for Irish and Polish business?
I mean, it's currently there are around 60 Irish companies in Poland with some sort of presence, be it, let's say, production facility or a small office like that of SmartSex in Kraków. But they keep on coming, and what is happening also is that we see Polish people coming back to Poland from Ireland, and taking these Irish companies they used to work for with them, and they develop their businesses in Poland. So that's a kind of interesting people-to-people connection through business between Ireland and Poland that's happening, and we have a couple of these cases of companies that have Polish representatives who kind of came back from Ireland to Poland and developed these businesses now in the region here.
And how often do you get to go to Dublin yourself, Bart? I mean, is that generally where you'd be when you're sent back to Ireland? And I suppose I'm curious as well, when you were applying for this job, kind of how much you knew about Irish culture and Irish life, or was it something that you've kind of grown to know more about over the years?
Yeah, it's mostly Dublin, and I would travel somewhere between 8 to 12 times a year, so quite often. And it's I'd like to get more out of Dublin, and I really enjoyed my time in Galway and Westport and Castlebar when I was there, in Killarney.
Beautiful spots, all of the ones you've just
named. And last year we went with a group of kind of colleagues to Dundalk and then to Monaghan to visit Combi Leaf's factory. So that was interesting insight into what's happening in the regions.
I can organise a tour of Tallaght for you if you like, Bart.
I was there.
Very good. Very good. Ago. Massive Polish community, of course.
Yeah. And I didn't know much, to be honest. I was in London back in the 90s, 95, 96, and that was when I got hooked on Father Ted. So that was my introduction to Irish kind of culture or TV. And I really loved the show and subsequent productions of Graham Linehan.
My wife loves it as well, Bart. It does seem to travel well. I don't know if it's the Catholic Church element or if it's just one of those comedies that everybody seems to find funny. Of course, Channel 4 in Britain ended up commissioning it, so we couldn't even keep our own talent at RTE back then. That was a bit of a national shame that we let Father Ted go over to sea. But any other Irish TV shows you love, Bart?
No, I like stand-up comedy, so I saw Dylan Moran when he was here in Warsaw, and he's coming back again in April this year. I like Ed Byrne, and I like Rubber Bandits. So they are my favorite band, and I also follow the Blind Boys podcast, which is something different. It's really something, you know. He's a great guy, and he's a great speaker in the sense that he's very genuine and he cares about mental health, and he's got a great story to tell, and he doesn't bullshit. Can I say that word?
Yes, you can, Bart. It's the beauty of the podcast format. You can say whatever the hell you like.
So I really enjoy listening to him as well. So.
Yeah, I really need to check that one out. I believe it's become one of the most popular podcasts in Ireland, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. It's certainly one that I want to check out myself. Okay, Bart, well, I have to say, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. It fills me with pride and joy as a man married to a Polish woman with a Polish son to hear a man that's donning the green jersey up in Warsaw day in, day out, fighting hard for the Irish economy. It really does warm my heart, Bart. But is there anything else you'd like to mention about the great work you guys are doing in Enterprise Ireland? Anything we didn't cover?
No, as I say, we are quite active as an investor. So for example, in terms of fintech or financial technology companies, we would be one of the most active investors in the world, like globally. So we have, there's a lot of talk about, these challenger banks or challenger companies like Revolut or N26, and others. And what's interesting is that in many cases, it's the Irish kind of companies that provide key solutions or systems, for these companies. And we have around 200 fintech companies in our portfolio. And in general, we'll be happy to share that knowledge and how we work with these companies with the Krakow community. And it's for me, it's always coming back to Krakow is like walking down the memory lane, because I spent 2 years there in 1988 to 1990. I was in a high school, in a boarding school of priest Piarist, and I really enjoyed my time there because it was politically, it was very interesting time. Solidarity movement and all these changes that took place. And Krakow was unique in the sense that there were different flavors of opposition at that time. So we had Orange Alternative, we had anarchists, and everybody wanted to fight the communists. And I remember there were some really heated kind of demonstrations back in 1988 when the whole market square was actually covered with tear gas, and it was quite exciting time.
I think we've just hit on the possible theme for our next episode, Bart. I'll have to have you back on to hear all about the riots and the protests back then. I mean, that's a fascinating era of Polish history, and something we'd very much like to talk to you about in the future. And touching on that, I mean, fintech is it's a massive area moving forward. I couldn't help but think when you said that we'll have to get Paddy Cosgrove and all the green jersey, because he's moved that money conference out of Dublin now, like he did the Web Summit to Lisbon. So not a good development. I was reading about it yesterday. What did you think about that decision?
I mean, he's very opportunistic, let's say.
Isn't
so
he?
There's no sentiment whatsoever. It's all based on data and where most money can.
Sure, as long as he's happy with.
Yeah. But,
okay. Sorry, Bart. Go ahead.
No, I invited him. I invited him to Warsaw, and he was speaking. I don't know when was that, 6 or 7 years ago, and he gave a great presentation about his background and how his father was a farmer, but in the evenings and afternoons he was kind of fiddling with computers, and that's where Paddy's fascination with technology came from.
Sure. We won't be inviting him on anytime soon. Okay, that was our guest, Bart, from Enterprise Ireland. Thank you very much for coming on the Crackcast, Bart.
Thank you, and all listeners are very welcome to join us for the Irish-Polish Innovation Forum on the 13th of March in Krakow Park of Technology.
We will be posting a link in the show description with more details, and if anyone would like to ask us a question about the event, feel free to reach out on Facebook and we'll direct you to the correct person. Thank you very much, Bart.
Thanks, Dave. All the best.